First Contact and Mockery. The Zarkanian warship Eternal Glory hung in high orbit above Earth, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight into 1,000 prismatic beams. High Admiral Vector stood on the command deck, his scaled hands clasped behind his back, as he observed the blue planet below with barely concealed disdain. Another primitive species fumbling their way into space, he muttered, watching the antiquated satellites and space stations circling the planet. The humans' technology seemed laughably basic to his eyes. Solar-powered vessels, chemical rockets, and what appeared to be early attempts at fusion drives. The Zarkanian Empire had ruled their sector of the galaxy for 10,000 years, their technological superiority unchallenged. They had expected to find another race to subjugate when they detected unusual radio signals from this spiral arm. Instead, they found this. High Admiral, his science officer reported, their primary space stations appear to be dedicated to research and scientific observation. We detect no significant weapons platforms or military installations in orbit. Vector's inner eyelids flickered in amusement. Show me their transmissions. The main view screen filled with images of human space activity, international cooperation on their space station, scientific missions to their red neighbor planet, and what seemed to be purely civilian space tourism ventures. No warships, no weapon systems, just endless streams of scientific data and cultural broadcasts. Their first contact protocols are interesting, the communications officer noted. They're broadcasting welcome messages in multiple formats, including mathematical sequences and visual representations. They're inviting us to dock at their primary station for peaceful dialogue. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. They had seen this before. Species so naive, they thought the galaxy could be explored with nothing but good intentions and scientific curiosity. Such races usually became protectorates of the Empire within a standard cycle, their resources and labor adding to the Empire's glory. Send no response, Vector commanded. Continue observations. I want a full analysis of their defensive capabilities, or lack thereof. He allowed himself a small smile. The Emperor will be amused to learn that in all their fumbling progress into space, these humans never thought to arm themselves properly. What Vector and his crew failed to notice were the quantum fluctuations emanating from within Earth's moon, or the fact that every human satellite, no matter how primitive it appeared, contained a small device that was actively scanning and analyzing their warship's every detail. They didn't notice because they weren't looking for them. After all, how could such a peaceful species be capable of such sophisticated technology? Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, in a facility whose existence was known to fewer than 100 humans, General Sarah Chen watched the alien warship's scans scroll across her quantum displays. She sat quietly, drinking her coffee, as the most sophisticated AI ever created by humanity dissected every detail of Zarkanian technology. They're not even trying to hide their technical specifications, her chief scientist commented. They genuinely believe we can't comprehend their technology. Chen nodded, setting down her coffee mug. Humanity learned long ago that the best armor is to be underestimated. Let them watch our primitive space stations. Let them laugh at our chemical rockets. She stood, walking to the main display showing the crystalline warship. They'll learn soon enough. The first seeds of what would become a harsh lesson in humility were already being planted, though the Zarkanians remained blissfully unaware. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, building their strength in secret while maintaining a carefully crafted image of peaceful scientific development. As Vector's ship began its survey of the solar system, automated systems throughout the Kuiper Belt silently activated, tracking its movement. Quantum entangled communications carried its specifications to hidden shipyards within Mercury's core and beneath Europa's ice. And in universities and research centers across Earth, scientists continued their work, maintaining the charade of a species just beginning to understand the cosmos. The High Admiral would soon learn that humanity's greatest deception wasn't in hiding their weapons, it was in making their greatest strengths look like weaknesses. The breaking point. 6 months after first contact, The Zarkanian Empire had moved from observation to action. Their contempt for humanity's perceived weakness had grown into outright aggression, beginning with small incursions into the outer solar system. Research outposts on distant Kuiper Belt objects reported mysterious equipment failures. Supply ships to the Mars colonies occasionally disappeared without trace. The Eternal Glory had been joined by a small fleet of Zarkanian vessels, each one a crystalline masterpiece of engineering that made human ships look like children's toys in comparison. High Admiral Vector had even stopped trying to hide his ship's movements, confident that humanity's primitive sensors couldn't track his advanced vessels anyway. The humans have issued another diplomatic request, his communications officer reported with obvious amusement. They're asking for dialogue regarding the missing supply ships. Vector reclined in his command chair, his scaled skin shimmering under the bridge lights. Send them our usual response. Static. Silence. The humans had received this non-answer dozens of times before. High Admiral. His tactical officer called out. The Beta Strike Group reports they've located a significant human research installation on Europa. Initial scans suggest breakthrough developments in fusion technology. Vector's inner eyelids flickered with interest. Perhaps these humans weren't completely useless after all. Take it, he ordered. Show these peaceful explorers what happens when you venture into space without proper defenses. The Beta Strike Group, consisting of 3 Zarkanian destroyers, descended upon Europa Station with overwhelming force. They expected token resistance at best. Perhaps some primitive point defense weapons or electromagnetic shields. They found neither. The station's personnel, all 157 of them, offered no resistance at all. They simply continued their work as the Zarkanian boarding parties breached their hulls. Dr. Elena Martinez, the station's director, calmly stood her ground as armed warriors stormed her laboratory. This facility is conducting civilian research, she stated firmly. There are children aboard this station. The Zarkanian commander laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Then you should have protected them better, he said, before ordering his troops to begin rounding up the humans. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, General Chen watched the situation unfold through quantum-entangled feeds. Her coffee had grown cold, forgotten as the tension in the command center rose. The A's analysis appeared in front of her. Zarkanian tactical doctrine confirmed. Behavioral patterns match historical predictions. Recommendation. Protocol Omega is now justified. Chen's hand hovered over the quantum-secured comm panel. One command would reveal humanity's true capabilities, unleashing weapons and defenses developed in secret over centuries. But she waited, watching. On Europa Station, Dr. Martinez stood between the Zarkanian troops and the station's children, who were huddled in the main hydroponics bay. Please, she said, they're just children. Let them return to Earth with the next supply ship. The Zarkanian commander raised his weapon. The Empire has no use for human offspring, he declared. They would only grow up to be as weak as their parents. The weapon fired. In Cheyenne Mountain, Chen's coffee mug shattered on the floor. On her screens, she watched Dr. Martinez fall, watched the children scream, watched as the Zarkanians systematically began executing the station's personnel. Protocol Omega, she said quietly into the comm. Authorization, Chen, Alpha 770. Weapons free. I repeat, weapons free. Throughout the solar system, humanity's facade began to fall away. The moon's surface rippled as massive hangar doors, quantum shifted out of normal spacetime, began to open. Beneath Europa's ice, kilometers from the doomed research station, automated shipyards surged to life. Within Mercury's core, weapon systems that had waited centuries for this moment powered up. On the Eternal Glory, Vector was just receiving the report of his Beta Strike Group's success when his tactical officer's scales turned pale. High Admiral, the officer stammered. I'm detecting energy signatures, thousands of them, throughout the entire system. Source, Vector demanded. Everywhere, the officer whispered. They're coming from everywhere. The High Admiral was about to demand clarification when space itself seemed to tear open around his fleet. Ships emerged, human ships, but nothing like the primitive vessels they'd observed before. These were warships, their hulls black as the void itself, bristling with weapons that made his tactical officers' instruments scream in protest. And on every hull, written in gleaming letters, was a phrase that would soon become legend throughout the galaxy: peace through strength. Awakening the giant. The first shot of humanity's counterattack wasn't fired from their newly revealed warships. Instead, it came from the supposedly primitive satellites that the Zarkanians had dismissed as space debris. Each one activated quantum probability fields that had laid dormant for decades, creating a web of distorted space-time that trapped the Zarkanian fleet in place. Vector watched in horror as his mighty crystalline ships found themselves unable to engage their faster-than-light drives. Impossible, he breathed, watching the tactical display fill with more human vessels than he could count. They were primitive. They were peaceful. The Empire made a critical error. A new voice spoke across all Zarkanian communication channels. General Chen's hologram appeared on the Eternal Glories Bridge, her expression stern but composed. You mistook our dedication to peace as weakness, our scientific pursuits as ignorance, our patience as fear. The black human warships moved with impossible precision, their formations creating geometric patterns that Vector's tactical officers recognized too late as quantum computational arrays. Each ship was not just a weapon platform. It was part of a vast distributed intelligence that had been planning this moment for centuries. Your species had 10,000 years to learn that true strength lies not in the weapons you possess, but in the wisdom to know when not to use them. Chen continued. Humanity learned that lesson through millennia of our own wars. We chose peace not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to understand its value. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden infrastructure revealed itself. The asteroid belt shimmered as cloaking fields dropped, exposing massive shipyards and defense platforms. The surface of Mars rippled as underground bases activated. Even Venus's toxic atmosphere churned as floating fortresses emerged from their cover. On Earth, billions of humans watched their screens as the truth was finally revealed. The centuries of excessive scientific spending, the wasteful space exploration programs, the countless research stations, all had been part of a vast preparation for this moment. But you, Chen's voice hardened, you mistook our restraint for weakness, our scientific curiosity for technological backwardness, and worst of all, her eyes flashed with controlled anger, you killed our children. Vector's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as his tactical display updated. The human ships weren't just surrounding his fleet, they were herding them into a precise formation. Each movement seemed random at first, but as he watched, he realized with growing dread that they were being positioned like pieces on a game board. What you're experiencing now, Chen explained, is something we call the Fibonacci trap. Each of your ships is caught in a quantum probability matrix that grows more complex with every attempt to escape. The more you struggle, the more firmly you're caught. As if to demonstrate, one of Vector's destroyers attempted to break formation. Instantly, the space around it twisted, corridors of bent light forming complex spiral patterns that left the ship tumbling helplessly. We could have shared our knowledge with you, Chen continued. We could have taught you about the quantum technologies we discovered, the space-time manipulation techniques we mastered, the artificial intelligences we created not as weapons but as partners. Instead, you chose to teach us that there are still those in the galaxy who understand only one language. The human ships began to power up their main weapons, not the primitive nuclear devices or particle beams the Zarkanians had expected, but something far more sophisticated. Reality itself seemed to bend around their weapon ports, light twisting in ways that made Vector scientists weep in comprehension and terror. This is not a battle, Chen declared. This is your education. And humanity. Humanity will be your teacher. The lesson began with a single human ship approaching the trapped Eternal Glory. Its weapon ports opened, revealing not the expected energy weapons, but what appeared to be simple mirrors. Vector almost laughed, until he realized that what he was seeing in those mirrors was not a reflection, but rather infinite versions of his own ship, each one trapped in its own probability matrix, each one about to experience the same fate. The quantum cascade was about to begin. The price of arrogance. The quantum cascade that engulfed the eternal glory wasn't destructive. It was transformative. Vector watched in mute horror as his mighty flagship was shifted through multiple probability states simultaneously. In one reality, his ship's crystalline hull transformed into pure energy. In another, it phased out of normal spacetime entirely. In a third, it simply ceased to exist, leaving his crew floating in their environmental suits, very much alive but utterly helpless. We call this consciousness preservation, General Chen's hologram explained, her image now appearing before each surviving Zarkanian crew member. Your bodies exist in a quantum superposition of states, but your minds, your awareness, remains intact. We wanted you to witness what follows. Throughout the solar system, humanity's response unfolded with terrible precision. The black warships moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum computational arrays rewriting local spacetime. The Beta strike group that had attacked Europa Station found themselves experiencing time in reverse, forced to watch their victims rise from death, wounds healing, but unable to change their actions. A lesson in consequences, written in 4 dimensions. In the Kuiper Belt, where Zarkanian ships had preyed on human supply vessels, automated defense platforms activated. These weren't the primitive weapon systems the Empire had expected. Instead, they were probability engines, devices that could calculate and execute the most mathematically perfect response to any tactical situation. Your empire prides itself on 10,000 years of technological superiority, Chen continued, her voice reaching every surviving Zarkanian. Humanity spent its 10,000 years differently. While you conquered, we questioned. While you stagnated in your certainty, we drove ourselves mad with possibilities. Every scientific breakthrough, every philosophical advancement, every technological leap forward, all of it was in service of a single question. How do we preserve peace in a universe that might not want it? Vector, suspended in quantum flux with his crew, finally found his voice. Then why? He struggled with the concepts assaulting his understanding. Why maintain the deception? Why appear weak? A sad smile crossed Chen's face. Because true strength lies in choosing not to use it. We wanted to meet other species as equals, not as conquerors or the conquered. We hid our capabilities not out of fear, but out of hope. Hope that we could forge relationships based on mutual respect and curiosity rather than military might. Throughout the Empire's territory, quantum entanglement sensors were detecting the impossible. Human ships, real ones, not the primitive vessels they'd been shown, were appearing near every major Zarkanian military installation, not to attack, but to demonstrate that they could have attacked at any time. Consider the Europa Station. Chen's voice hardened. Those scientists you murdered, they weren't defenseless. Every human who ventures into space carries within them quantum-encoded capabilities that would boggle your military minds. But they chose, we chose, to die rather than reveal our true nature before it was absolutely necessary. That wasn't weakness. That was discipline. The surviving Zarkanians watched as their mighty fleet was systematically neutralized, not through destruction, but through transformation. Ships were phased into alternate dimensions. Weapons were probability shifted into their component atoms. Command and control systems were quantum entangled with their own worst-case scenarios. We could annihilate your entire empire, Chen stated matter-of-factly. We could erase you from history, shift you into a reality where the Zarkanian species never evolved, or simply reduce your civilization to its constituent quantum states. But that would make us no better than you. Vector, his perception stretched across multiple probability states, finally understood. The humans hadn't been hiding their weapons. They had been hiding their restraint. Their scientific pursuits weren't a cover for military preparation. The military preparation was a sad necessity for protecting their true passion, exploration and discovery. As the quantum cascade completed its work, the survivors of the Zarkanian fleet found themselves restored to normal spacetime, but changed. Their ships, once mighty crystalline fortresses, were now transparent to human sensors. Their weapons had been probability shifted into scientific instruments. Their military capability hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed. This, Chen concluded, is how humanity wages war. Not with destruction, but with understanding. Not with death, but with transformation. You came to teach us our place in the galaxy. Instead, you're going to learn yours. The lesson wasn't over, but its hardest part was complete. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity's dedication to peace was the most terrifying weapon of all. A new understanding. One standard galactic year after the quantum cascade, High Admiral Vector stood before the combined council of species on Earth. The chamber, hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, had existed for centuries. Another secret humanity had kept. Representatives from 1,000 civilizations watched as the former military commander, his scaled skin now bearing the iridescent patterns of quantum transformation, addressed the assembly. "I stand before you," Vector began, his voice humble, as living proof of humanity's greatest weapon, mercy. His inner eyelids, once used to display dominance, now flickered with remembered awe. The Zarkanian Empire ruled through force for 10,000 years. We thought ourselves invincible, enlightened, superior. We were wrong. The assembled representatives murmured as holographic displays showed the transformation of the Empire, where once stood weapons platforms, now orbited scientific outposts. The crystalline warships had been reformed into exploration vessels. The military hierarchy had been rebuilt into a council of researchers and philosophers. Humanity could have destroyed us, Vector continued. Their quantum technology, their probability engine,